about the biggest one today, which is Takata airbags. Everyone has heard about Takata airbags. If you have ever seen a car, if you even seen it, I don't care if you've never driven one, you've never purchased one, you've never seen one on the road, if you've seen a magazine with a picture of a car on it, you probably know about the Takata airbag recall, the biggest automotive recall ever in all of history, ever, right? So, Takata as a company, when were they formed and where? Well, Takata is a Japanese company, and they were formed in 1933 in Hakone, Shiga, Japan, which I said very wrong, but forgive me because I am an American. Now, believe it or not, airbags didn't exist around this time. In fact, they were just invented in 1953. So what did Takata do in its first, let's say, 20 years of production, of making things? What did they make? They made, textiles, they made parachutes, they made, cloth-related items like that, until in 1988 when they started manufacturing airbags. Now, the first manufacturer to widely use Takata airbags in 1998 was Honda. Honda, they said, Takata airbags are great, we're going to put them in almost all of our vehicles. And that's when Honda officially started using Takata airbags, because remember, in the 80s, airbags weren't increasingly common in vehicles, especially not side corner curtain, chest airbags like we have today, right? So in their introduction in the 90s, starting to become mandatory, starting to get some traction, Honda decided that they would take a chance and use Takata, right? What could go wrong, right? What could go wrong? So, believe it or not, the first airbag recall, which was officially reported in 2004, wasn't in 2004 by Honda. It was actually in Isuzu when they issued a recall for an exploding airbag canister. There are also some other key events in here. We're going to talk about this later. But yeah, so Isuzu is another company that also used Takata airbags, and in 2001 they also reported this disaster before Honda. Just adding that in there. But in 2004, Honda, 2008, Honda, 2013, Takata finally did it. Recall, and then from down there, Honda, they were really the ones to start issuing the recalls, but still, And remember, Honda issued the first recall for Takata driver's side inflators due to improperly, manufactured propellant wafers in 2008, which is 4 years after 2004 when the first one was reported by Honda. So exactly what are the issues with Takata airbags, right? What is the issue? Well, Takata airbags, and all airbags as general, use an inflator. An inflator is essentially a bunch of explosives, for better or for worse, that produce nitrogen, usually nitrogen with a mix of a couple other chemicals. And what happens? There's a crash sensor. It sends a signal to the igniter, and then the igniter goes boom. To be in more specific terms, it's a very thin piece of wire, or it used to be. Nowadays it's much more modern. It's a very thin piece of wire stuck in what is essentially just gunpowder, right? Imagine it's just gunpowder, right? And it's stuck in there in a little thing, in a little box, and on one side of that box, there's a hole that's open to the airbag, right? So when that thing goes off, the metal gets hot, ignites the thing, airbag goes out, right? So that's generally how they work. The Takata airbags were caused by airbag inflators that could cause them to explode in a crash. Essentially, Takata was being cheap. The chemicals that they usually use in the inflator, I don't remember specifics. There's a much better video on this, but I'm just covering broadly how this happened here. We're going to get more into numbers as the video goes on and proceeds. Essentially, Takata went cheaper, and instead of using the explosive that they were already using, which was stable and could do a good job, they used a different one, which was cheaper and a lot more aggressive, so they had to do a couple things to make it not so angry and aggressive. And, believe it or not, that may seem fine, right? During testing, this new super explosive but super cheap chemical seemed to be fine as long as it was kept normal. But unfortunately, with the inflator, again, the explosives, aluminum nitrate C can break down over time due to high temperatures, humidity, and temperature fluctuations. All things that cars go through, which is crazy. So essentially, they tried to stabilize it, and they stabilized it the best that they could. And then over time, because Takata's just being cheap, that's half the recalls that happen in the car world, is just companies being cheap, or subsidizing the way that, people used to do things in better ways for cheaper things, and it never goes well. So they were able to stabilize it, but over time, high temperatures, humidity, and temperature fluctuations. So high temperatures, that's like 100 degrees, that's, damaging things. High humidity, also damaging things, not good, can wear down. And temperature fluctuations, it's not good. Like, let's say it's freezing, and then it's all of a sudden very warm, and then freezing and warm. We've already seen that with tires, right? Tire pressure can go down depending on, if it was a cold night and then a warm morning. it's just the way that things work, right? Temperature fluctuations, humidity, and high temperatures. That's what ended up murdering Takata in the end, right? Like I said, Isuzu was the first ever company to report that, so congratulations, Isuzu. It only took, 6 years. But other than that, let's look at the first Takata airbag recall. And it was in 2001, like I said, by Isuzu due to an incident involving an exploding airbag canister and resulting damage, right? Again, this was just Takata saying an incident, yada, yada, yada. It was based on this incident. And that was the first Takata airbag recall was issued by Isuzu. 2004, the first reported explosion was in a Honda. A driver in Alabama was injured when he was struck by metal fragments exploding in its airbag in his 2002 model Honda. Now, I couldn't find a lot about that infamous 2002 model Honda. I'm thinking it's a Civic because that was what was mainly in the airbag recalls, right? So we already know what caused it. Let's just take a look at the numbers. So we can definitely see over here, remember Honda. Essentially, automakers will need to recall about 42 million vehicles in the U.S. with nearly 70 million Takata airbags at risk, right? Not recalled, but at risk. Below, here's a chart for some major automakers of the completion rate. So these are essentially, you have to take your car in and get them replaced, right? And Honda, like I said, they were the most used car company under Subaru and Toyota, right? Again, Japanese car companies using a Japanese company to make their airbags. Not surprising that Ford, GM, and, these other guys are down there, especially Fiat Chrysler and BMW, which is German and American again. Nissan and Mazda also used a few, but, they've been kind of tightly wound together for a while. And also, it's safe to say that both of these kind of had their own American counterparts. Like Mazda loved to work with Ford. I believe Nissan worked with GM for a while. Ugh. Anyway, this is just the completion rate. Now, this is as of 2017, as May 2017. It's gotten a lot better since then, but this is overall the airbags that they've repaired compared to how many airbags they put out. Honda, at the most, with 58.6%, which is more than half, which is great. Subaru with 35.2%, Toyota with 33.6%, Ford, and you can just see going down, and of course Mercedes-Benz at 1.8%. When you have to siphon your oil out of the tank, it might be a little bit frustrating to keep having to go in and out of the dealership. This is also just this is the last thing that we're going to look at today, and this is just how it snowballed. So we all know it's the biggest recall in history, and it took time. Like I said, the first official recall was in 2001, small recall. Isuzu, they don't sell in the U.S. anymore, and even when they were selling in the U.S., they weren't very good or that competitive back in the day. We're talking 90s, 2001, and so, that didn't really get traction, right? But in 2008, that Honda recall, Honda, big car company, big company, not car, big company, and yeah, so that's essentially what happened. We can see 2013, first recall affected 3.6 million vehicles. 2015, 40 million vehicles across 12 brands. So notice 2013 to 2015 just snowballed. NHTSA announced, remember, the NHTSA had to step in here. The NHTSA, or National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, is essentially the United States government's IAHS for crash testing. In the UK and Australia, you have what is it called again? You have the ANCAP in Australia, and then you have I think it's the ANCAP again in the UK. Anyway, 35 to 40 million inflators, 2019, a new recall, 1.4 million older German and Japanese models. September 2024, 67 million Takata airbags in tens of millions of vehicles. So this is essentially just the disaster and how it happened. So with that, thank you for watching. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and I will see you guys very soon.